Welcome to the Sporting Mindset Show. I'm Dwayne Nestor, your host, and I'm excited you're hanging out with me today. Now look, we're diving into a topic today that is hands down one of the most underrated, undervalued superpowers in the entire world of sport. We are talking about consistency. You were probably expecting something a bit juicier than that, weren't you? Consistency doesn't sound flashy. It's not a viral highlight reel on TikTok. It's not a dramatic last-second buzzer beater that makes the crowd storm the court. It's definitely not a shiny trophy you get to hoist up on day one. But here's the absolute unfiltered truth. Consistency is the quiet, invisible engine that drives every single breakthrough you will ever have as an athlete. It's the difference between being a flash in the pan and someone who actually achieves their biggest sporting dreams. So today, we're going to completely unpack how you build it, how you protect it, and believe it or not, how you can actually learn to love it. And we're going to do it in a really practical way. So I've broken this up into sections and I'll provide some information on each topic. Then I'll finish with a call to action, which is basically some strategy you can put into play straight away. So, right now, whatever you're doing, whether you're walking the dog, grabbing a snack, or just pretending you're doing your recovery so your coach doesn't yell at you, let's dive straight into it. Now, part one, building your support network. First things first, let's bust a massive myth right out of the gate. Consistency does not happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen alone. Even if you play an individual sport, say you're a tennis player, a swimmer, a gymnast, or a runner, your sport isn't actually solo. You need a rock-solid support network. And I don't just mean a group of people who stand on the sidelines and clap when you win. You need people who can communicate with you honestly and people you can be honest with without being judged. So right now, have a think about the people closest to you. Are they completely honest with you, or do they blow smoke up your exhaust pipe, filling your head with grandeur? Let's break this down into two massive pillars. Honest communication, the first, and clear expectations, the second. Now, first up, honest communication. You need a circle of people, your parents, coaches, your best mates, who can look at you and say, hey, you seem a bit off today. What's actually going on? How can I help? Now, I'm sure your supporters will let you know when you perform well and your attitude is spot on. But you have to make sure that they're clear on their role to challenge you when you don't put in the effort or when you are obviously hiding behind an excuse. And these are tough conversations, but they're so valuable in making sure you are as consistent as possible. And on the flip side, you need the courage to look at them and say, you know what, I'm really struggling today. I'm exhausted. My brain is absolutely fried from exams and I think I need a reset. And you need to be able to do this without the stress of thinking that they're judging you. Think about it this way. If you're hiding how you feel, you're going to get burned out. Honesty builds trust. Trust creates a safe space, and a safe space is exactly where consistency takes root. I believe every session can be given an indicative feeling score. So when you are feeling primed, it's a 10-day. And so your challenge is to make that session a 10 out of 10 in terms of effort and attitude. Other days may feel at best to only be a 7-day. Those days where you are feeling fatigued or sore or lacking some motivation. And if that's the case and you know it's going to be a challenging session, accept that it's not going to be the best. But you make sure your effort and attitude can make it a 7 out of 7 session. We let ourselves down and impact our consistency when we give in to a challenging day and it ends up being a 3 out of 7 day. Secondly, we need clear expectations. Your coaches, your parents, your teammates, your mates, they should all know exactly what you're aiming for this season. And you need to know exactly what they expect from you in return. If your coach thinks you're trying to make the state team, but you're just playing to have fun with your friends, you're going to have friction. And for many athletes listening to this, I would like to think that having fun with your mates is not your only reason for playing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, But if you've made the effort to listen to this, you are likely to be wanting to develop yourself and perform at the highest level you can. And having such a disconnect between why you're playing and why your coach is coaching you, that's going to be problematic. The conversation about the expectations of all sides of the athlete is essential. Athlete expectations, coach expectations, parental expectations. When everyone is on the same page, your environment becomes predictable, stable, and incredibly supportive. And let me tell you, consistency absolutely thrives in that sort of clarity. So here's your call to action. Have 2 conversations. One with your immediate support network, usually mum and or dad, and one with your coach. And ask them this question, or the first of these 2 questions. How honest are we with each other around both our performances in training and competition? And then 2, the second question is, what are our expectations relating to my sport? These 2 questions rely on the fact that everyone involved is playing a role. So the questions are double-sided, need to be answered by both parties, the coach and the athlete, or the parent and the athlete. Part 2, creating a daily training environment that actually works. Now that your network is sorted, let's talk about your physical world, your training environment. This is the place where you train, where you recover, and where you grind day in and day out. So it's got to be spot on. And then when we talk about it being a conducive environment, a lot of people might immediately think, great, I need fancy gym memberships, expensive equipment, an Olympic grade setup. Not so. Absolutely not, actually. A conducive environment simply means 3 things. You know where your things are, you know exactly what you're doing, and you know what a good day actually looks like. If your training space feels like absolute chaos, your mind is going to feel like absolute chaos too. If you're spending 20 minutes before every workout hunting for your left shoe or looking for your resistant bands or trying to find a clean water bottle, you're draining your willpower before you even get onto the training track. So make it simple. Keep your gear organised in the same spot. Have a little pre-training routine. Maybe it's a specific dynamic warm-up or a specific track you listen to on your Spotify playlist. Set up your space the same way each day. Your brain is a creature of habit. It absolutely loves patterns. If you give it predictable patterns, it rewards you by switching into performance mode much faster. It takes the guesswork out of being consistent. So here's your call to action on this one. Sit down and think about what your best training day looks like. Have a piece of paper and pen with you and write down all the things you have control over that make up the best training day. Think about equipment. Think about mental preparation, about travel to and from training, about nutrition, about your mental and physical load for each day and each week. And remember, a weekday session may be quite different to a weekend session or a morning session versus an evening session. Once you have that list, prioritise it and work through each item in priority order, making sure each day or week you are nailing another item on that list. After a few weeks, you will have nailed enough items to ensure you're giving yourself the best chance to have an effective and consistent training environment. Part 3, routines that are reliable and flexible. So this leads us perfectly into the backbone of consistency, routines. Now, when you hear the word routine, you might think of a strict military-style schedule where everything is timed down to the second. But here's the massive plot twist that most young athletes miss. To be truly consistent, your routine needs to be flexible as well. A reliable routine on paper looks awesome, right? It looks like wake up, hydrate, do some mobility, eat a healthy breakfast, go to school, after school have a snack, head to training, do your recovery. In the evening, you do your homework, chill out, go to sleep, repeat. Beautiful. Sounds great. But guess what? Life happens. School assignments pile up out of nowhere. The weather turns absolutely miserable. You might get stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, or your coach changes the session at the last minute. If your routine is really, really rigid, like a piece of glass, the moment life hits it, it shatters. And then you throw your hands up and you say, well, that day is ruined, so I guess I won't train. Instead, your routine needs to be like a GPS system in a car. It needs to be reliable enough that you always know your ultimate destination, but flexible enough that if you miss a turn, it just calmly recalculates. It gives you another route. It doesn't shut down and scream at you and tell you to drive into a ditch. If you only end up with 20 minutes to train instead of an hour because of homework, you don't throw that 20 minutes out. You don't skip it. You just recalculate. You do a high-quality 20-minute session, and that is how flexibility keeps consistency alive and keeps you consistent. So here's your call to action for routines. And the good thing is you may have already done a lot of the work in the previous part. Take your pen and paper again and your training environment list and create both the training and competition schedule. And you may already have this done. You might have a calendar that's already set up. Think about what preparation and post-event practices or routines you need to do well to ensure you perform at your best. For example, you may organise your equipment the night before so that when you wake up in the morning, whether it's for training or competition, you don't need to give any energy to your kit. You know it's done, checked and ready to rock and roll. However, you also need to understand that if your routine for packing your equipment gets thrown out of whack and you need to organise it on the day of training or competition, that you know exactly how long it takes and that you can easily incorporate that into your routine for that actual day. And this is the flexible part. You don't then end up stressing. You already know that there is a way of doing it. It's having a contingency, which leads us into part 4, contingencies for distractions. So, and let's get real for a moment. Let's talk about the 2 absolute biggest consistency killers in youth sports, a lack of motivation and injuries. We need a backup plan for both. Now, firstly, lack of motivation. And this happens to everybody, not just in youth sport. It's exactly like Wi-Fi. Sometimes it's running at maximum strength, full bars. You feel like you can conquer the world. And then, sometimes for absolutely no reason at all, and usually at an inconvenient time, it just drops out. You're staring at the screen, watching the Wheel of Death, and you just say, well, I'd rather lie on the couch. If you only train when you have full bars of motivation, you will never be consistent. So what's your backup plan? When motivation drops, you need to be able to rely on a minimum standard session, which you have pre-prepared. You tell yourself, I don't feel like doing the full workout, but I am going to put on my shoes and do a 10-minute jog. You put on a playlist that you know gets your feet moving, and you send a quick text to a teammate saying, hey, I'm feeling lazy today. Make sure you hold me accountable at practice. Motivation is great when it's there, but discipline is what builds the house when the Wi-Fi goes down. Second, and the unfortunate issue is injuries. Most people will have to suffer them within their career at some stage. And they're tough. They can feel like someone just brutally hit the pause button on all your hard work and progress. But consistency during an injury isn't about pushing through pain and making silly errors around our return to play. It's about pivoting. It's about doing what you can do. If your leg is injured, you work on your upper body or your core. It's about staying connected to your team, so going to practice just to support them, keeping your daily schedule alive, and treating your rehab exercise with the same focus you would give to a grand final game, for instance. Consistency isn't just about physical training. It's mostly actually about staying mentally engaged in the game. Being proactive in this space is key. With injuries, there can actually be a lag between the injury taking place and the prognosis, and then in return, the commencement of a rehab plan or surgery or other intervention. Where there doesn't have to be a lag is our reaction to the injury and our attitude. So let's use the leg injury, for example. You don't have to wait for anything to be able to continue doing upper body strength or skill development or analysis. You can keep your development going by simply altering the focus and doing what you can do and not wallowing in self-pity, ruminating on what you can't do. So, Your call to action. Arm yourself again with your pen and paper and write down your go-tos when your motivation drops. And you might need to experiment with this, but what is it you will rely on when you wake up and don't want to get out of bed for training? And you may identify a couple of strategies that work best for you. Write them out in as much detail as possible and pin them somewhere obvious, or do what preparation needs to be done so you can call on them immediately, so they're there straight away. And it might be like a hype playlist. You just hit play. It might be a highlights reel, so you just once again hit play on that. It might be a motivational saying that you can just walk past, read on the wall and go, yep, that's got me going. It might be messaging a teammate or a coach. It may be a poster of your goals on the wall so you can see the big picture. The second element of this relates to the unlucky instance of an injury. Have your strategy ready to go, whether it's an upper body program or a lower body program, whether it's a simple skill development sequence or an analysis process, maybe even it's just journaling to express your disappointment, and then asking a question, how can I use this time to my advantage? Part 5, quality planning, and that's from a weekly point of view and a seasonal point of view. Now, all of this becomes a million times easier if your scheduling actually makes sense, and this is where quality planning comes into play. Think about your week like a puzzle. You need to look ahead and know, when are my heavy training days? When are my dedicated recovery days? What does my school assessment load look like this week? Am I hitting my sleep targets, or am I staying up late scrolling? Then what you do is you zoom out to the whole season, and you need to understand the rhythm of your year. When do you need to peak for big selections or finals? When do you need to intentionally rest and let your body heal? When is the block where you just need to build that strength in your engine? And here's the absolute golden key to planning. Your goals must align with your plan. And I see this all the time. An athlete will come to me and say, for instance, my number one goal this season is to get faster. I want explosive speed. Beauty. So we sit down and we look at their weekly schedule, and all we see is endurance training, late nights and no recovery time. So it's like, hang on, there's a massive mismatch here. They don't align. What you're doing is you're consistently doing the wrong thing for your goal. So consistency is easy when your weekly plan directly and visibly supports what you're actually trying to achieve. So your call to action here is to open up a calendar and enter all your major events. And once again, you may have already done this. And then what I want you to do is I want you to create a template for your weekly schedule. And so on a weekly basis, use that template to highlight what's going on in that week. It doesn't have to be precise to the minute detail, but it does need to provide clarity on what you've got going on. And then with this knowledge, you'll be able to get on the front foot if you notice a potential distraction. For example, you might notice there's an exam week in there, and so there's going to be extra distractions. You're going to be drawn away potentially from your training. So you can preempt that. Maybe a family holiday, and you go, okay, how am I going to be able to train when we're away? Or just simply even your heaviest training week. So you're ready to go, and you're ready to know that I'm going to be fatigued. I may need some extra recovery. And all of this comes in really handy when you hit part 6. And that's handling plateaus and performance dips, because they come inevitably. The honest thing about this is that it's something that frustrates every athlete on the planet. Those plateaus and those dips in performance. You're doing everything right. You're showing up, you're eating well, you're following your plan, and suddenly you've got nothing. You don't improve. Maybe even worse, you have a couple of weeks where you feel slow, heavy, tired, and just flat out frustrated. When this happens, most athletes think, oh, this consistency stuff isn't working. Time to change it up, so they throw it all out, or they just give up. I need you to completely realign your mindset here. And the first way to do this is to normalize it. Every single athlete, from the kid down the street to LeBron James to Olympic gold medalists, they hit plateaus. It's a completely normal part of human biology. Secondly, zoom out. Stop looking at your progress through a microscope over the last 24 hours. Look at your progress over the last 6 months. Look at how far you've come since last year. And third, And most importantly, stay curious. Instead of getting angry, ask yourself, what is this dip trying to teach me right now? Am I overtraining? Do I need more sleep? Is my body changing? Or have I just hit my heaviest workload all year? Adjust, don't abandon. Small tweaks, like an extra hour of sleep or a slight change in your warm-up, that'll often fix massive problems. And plateaus are not signs of failure. They're actually signs that you're possibly right on the doorstep of a major breakthrough. So just keep persevering. You just have to stay consistent to open the door. So your call to action for this one is mostly mental or reflective. Use your calendar and sit with your coach and work out when you may plateau or even dip. So have a bit of a prediction. You may identify a race where you'll be in full training load and you'll go into it fatigued. So you'll accept that there may be a chance you won't perform as well as you might like. You will know that in the big scheme of things, it's just part of the process in the bigger picture. And you may even become curious as to how you will respond under that level of fatigue. So it becomes something of interest as opposed to a threat. Now, part 7, and it relates to creating that curiosity and the curiosity about your potential. So let's talk about how we can use the curiosity to change how you view your training. And curiosity is one of the most powerful, untapped motivators we have. Think about the language you use when you talk to yourself. How often do you wake up and think, oh, I have to go to training today. I have to do these repetitive drills again. And those two words, have to, creates a fair bit of heavy pressure. It makes training feel like a chore, like, cleaning your room. What happens if we flip the script? What happens if you start thinking, geez, I wonder how much better I can get today? I wonder if I can nail that technique just 5% better than on Tuesday's session. See the difference? Curiosity completely transforms pressure into exploration. It turns your training environment into a laboratory where you're experimenting rather than a courtroom where you're being judged. So your call to action here is simple, and it can be done tonight, lying in bed. Start asking yourself the big, exciting questions. How fast could I actually get if I stayed consistent for a year? How strong could my body become? How far could I actually push my limits? Dream big, like really dream big here, and ask those questions. That will create some motivation for you and allow you to be consistent. Because curiosity fuels consistency because it keeps your eyes wide open and keeps you genuinely excited about the journey ahead, rather than just obsessing over the final score. Now, part 8, learning to love the grind. And that, my friends, brings us to the beautiful destination, learning to love the grind. Yes, the grind. We hear about it all the time on social media. The daily preparation, the freezing cold early mornings, the sore muscles, the mind-numbing repetitive drills that you've done 1,000 times. Here's the ultimate secret sauce of the world's best athletes. You don't love the grind because it's always fun. Let's be real, doing basic footwork drills at 6 a.m. in the rain is not fun. You love the grind because it belongs to you. It's yours. The grind is the exact place where you build your self-confidence. It's where you forge resilience. It's where your character comes from. It's where you develop your true identity as an athlete. And as the birthplace of your consistency. So, start finding joy in the tiny, quiet moments. Find joy in the small, subtle improvements that nobody else notices but you. Find joy in the comfort of your routine. Find joy in the proud feeling of showing up on the days you really didn't want to. Those days where you get up and you say, I don't want to do this, but you end up doing it. And at the end of the session, you pat yourself on the back and say, I got through that. Loving the grind doesn't mean you have to love every single painful, exhausting second of it. It means you love who you are becoming because of it. It means loving what the grind creates. So your call to action in this final part is to pick an element of your training or preparation that you find mind-numbingly monotonous. Search out your grind. Once you have it, put it into the context of the bigger picture and reframe it as a key element to your future success. For example, a tennis player serving over and over again, perfecting their ball toss. In isolation, that may seem like torture, but put into the context of, say, a championship match where your first serve percentage is world-class due to a perfect ball toss every time, that changes the bigger picture. It looks really attractive now, and the consistency creates an obvious advantage. Thank you for joining me. I hope today's chat and the calls to action that I've given you have given you something to think about. And one thing we know for certain is that mindset matters. So as you progress through your week, ask yourself what mindset you're bringing to your sessions. If this episode resonated with you, subscribe or follow or whatever it is you youngsters do these days, or share it with a teammate or friend who you think would benefit, and continue being part of a community that values growth, learning and high performance done the right way. I'm Dwayne Nestor, and this has been the Sporting Mindset Show.